Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 49 for Monday, July 22nd, 2019. My name is Jonny, and joining me, as always, is the internet's favourite son, Joel Duggan. Hey, Joel, how are you?
I have melted. I am now Joel the Puddle. You'll have to listen to the render distance to find out why.
Yes.
But yes, I'm here, and I'm excited because it's Monday, it's Spawn Chunks Day, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
We do. We really do. Let's start off by talking about what's new in our Minecraft lives. I suspect this will probably tie into the news a little bit because we have, at long last, a Minecraft 1.14.4 release. So have you had a chance to get into it, and does it make you throw up?
You stole my punchline. No,
I'm sorry.
I did not barf all weekend, so yay. No, I had cleared it actually with my server mates on Friday, because at that point, Friday morning for me, I had not received any news or seen anything about 14.4 being released, and I really wanted to get back in and play. We had like a rainy day that was supposed to happen on Sunday, and I thought, okay, what a perfect day to be inside, relaxing, maybe even stream all day. It didn't end up happening quite that way, but I wanted to update to at least pre-release 7, if not 14.4 before the weekend, because I had tried pre-release 7 on my own, and some of the game-breaking bugs for me as a Mac Java player had been fixed, and I was quite happy with that. So I ended up playing on my own this weekend. I had to have the AC on in the studio, which means that it was just too loud to stream. But I did a bunch of testing, really, because I didn't... It's funny, and you might be able to comment to this, because when I stream now, and a lot of what I do is when I stream, I'm recording videos for YouTube as well. I don't really do a lot of content in the world on my own. Like, I don't necessarily just log into Minecraft and build. If I want to log into Minecraft and play for an hour and a half before I go to bed, or just kind of relax on a Saturday afternoon, I do grindy stuff. Like I look at my shulker boxes and go, oh crap, I'm out of sand, or I need more gravel. Or the last time I streamed and I went to go make some concrete, I had like no ink sacks on me or something like that. So I run around and I do that kind of thing. And one of the projects that we have going on kind of long term is slabbing the nether, because I don't know why. It's a lot of work. We built a gold farm in the nether, not on the roof. And so there's a certain radius outside of the giant lava lake that needs to be spawn proofed. And I needed to move some netherrack around, and I needed to lay a bunch of nether brick slabs, which was a very good test of the screen strobing and screen tearing issues that I was having, because I noticed it the most in very samey textures. So being in netherrack, which is notoriously kind of awful on the eyes, even with the new texture, which I do quite like, it's still not noisy, but it's still designed.
It's not the most pleasant thing to look at. Like,
it's designed to make you feel kind of like lost, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not. It's meant to make you feel like, which way is which again?
Yeah. It basically erases landmarks, for want of a better.
Yes. Yeah. So I spent a good couple of hours yesterday on and off, just kind of like blitzing through and slabbing a bunch of stuff in the nether, and I was quite impressed. I'm really happy that the fixes are in. I did end up switching and loading up Optifine. We'll get to that in the news. There's a pre-release for Optifine. And as I mentioned to you in I think even the pre-show, it might have been render distance, I can't remember. I might even think that 14.4 on its own is currently snappier than Optifine. I mean, Optifine is going to give you shaders and more control over your settings if you're on an older machine, so that might be more important. But for me, on a machine that can handle kind of it either way, I run Optifine for quality of life things as opposed to like needing it for performance.
Yeah, same here. It's all about shaders and being able to zoom on stuff.
Zoom, for videos, and well, even I find even Zoom just kind of useful as a builder. You just kind of like, what does that look like? And you want to back up, but then you want to see what the details are and things like that. But anyway, I was impressed. I had a good time kind of bopping around with and I have to confess, as much as I do like streaming, I reserve building real content for when I'm streaming. I also did enjoy the freedom of not having to like watch a chat room and stuff. I could just kind of like do some not necessarily boring things that I find satisfying. Like this entire surface of netherrack needed covering, and I said I did that. I made sure I finished that particular chunk so I didn't lose my place. Not a chunk in Minecraft, but a chunk of land in the nether. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to seeing, now that a lot of this kind of stuff is fixed and a lot of these farms have been tweaked to the point where they're probably not going to be tweaked anymore. I'm looking forward to all the fun new stuff that we can do now in 14.4. What about you?
You'll have to let me know how well the gold farm is performing, because I know there were some changes to that, and I didn't keep track of where all of that ended up. But I'm getting very close to the point where I need to build myself one of those big old donut gold farms. So yeah, I will keep an eye on that in this week. But for the rest of last week, I started my end hub, which is a lot of fun so far. I'm planning on making it into a giant spaceport. So I've built a ring around all of the end gateways, and I'm now in the process of breaking all of the bedrock blocks on the top halves of the gateways, so that instead of having to throw an ender pearl or use a trapdoor or water or whatever kind of crouching mechanics that we have now to get into the gateways, I just walk into them. And that's fun. I really like that. The way I plan to do it, because I want to make it into a spaceport and I want each of the gateways to effectively have like a different design of spaceship above it, as if you just walk into like a teleporter and it teleports you onto the ship, but you're actually at the destination. So you end up kind of coming through the portal on the opposite side, and you're in whatever the ship is that is hovering above it in the central ring. But then when you disembark from the ship, you are actually out at the outer islands, is my concept for it. But I like the idea of having these things that I can just walk into. What that means is, so far, I've done 10 of the gateways. That's breaking 60 blocks of bedrock individually, using one of those complicated processes whereby you effectively force a piston to retract into a space it's not meant to retract to, and that deletes the bedrock block underneath it. It's a really weird process, and I did a video on it, and I'm pretty sure Logical Geek Boy and Methods have done an episode about breaking bedrock on their Dissecting Minecraft series, if anybody wants to go and check that out, because that's probably a lot more informative than I was in my video, which was just about how to do it, not necessarily why it works. So that's been a laborious thing to do. It's probably taken me, I would say, like, I've done 60 of these blocks so far. I've done 10 gateways. It has probably taken me about 6 or 7 hours to get that far. I've done it all on streams aside from the one I did on a video. Simply because it's a repetitive task that I can also like keep track of talking to people on stream and stuff. And loads of people have come into my stream and say, why aren't you just like putting a trapdoor onto this and crawling in, and like there's so many different ways of doing this now. And I'm like, it's not so much that I don't realize there are other ways of doing this. It's just it's something I've not really seen before. Everybody breaks bedrock on top of the nether to get onto the roof and do all of the kind of fairly exploitative stuff you can do up there. Nobody breaks bedrock for aesthetic purposes, typically. Unless you're on the SciCraft server, of course, but those guys are an exception in pretty much every way. So yeah. I like the fact that I can do something a little bit different now with this, and yeah, I don't think I have a way of destroying the bedrock like underneath the portal. So right now they're just like still nested in these little cradles of bedrock, which I don't think I will be removing. But it's a lot of fun, and it's fun to effectively break a piece of bedrock that otherwise the game effectively dictates that you can't do that. And I'm like, well, this is a sandbox. I'm gonna do what I want. So I've been doing a lot of that. I built a concrete maker the other day as well. That was the first kind of automatic machine to turn concrete powder into concrete and then break it using TNT. So I was going to
ask if you're going to use the TNT method.
Yeah, I managed to put one of those together. It only blew up once in the process of making it, so I call that a win.
Yeah.
And now I'm farming iron because of 114.4. I actually managed to put together a permanent iron farm based on DocM77's design. I know Nembon has a very good video out about that as well, which we'll probably talk about a little later on. But yeah, right now I am in the process of adding a couple of modules to that as far as additional villagers and stuff goes, additional zombies, because now the villagers are most productive when it comes to iron golems when they get scared by zombies. And so, yeah, I'm adding to that, and then the task then is disguising the farm in a way that doesn't mean the golems end up spawning somewhere else, because there are very specific spawning platforms for them to appear on, and if you put blocks too close to the villagers, then there's a chance that the golems can spawn on those. So I'm trying to figure out what the radius is, which is something I'm going to have to come back to Nembon's video for, in order to build something around the perimeter of this farm that isn't going to just kill the productivity of the farm. So that's my task. Aside from that, It's been a year since the update Aquatic, so it's been 1 year of the Minecraft Survival Guide now, and I expect a lot of other servers like Hermitcraft, I know, just celebrated the 1 year anniversary of their Season 6. I expect a lot of people who started in 1.13 Java and have now like updated and haven't like reset their world or anything are probably celebrating 1 year anniversaries for their things as well. So yeah, anybody who's out there who's who started their world in 1.13, congrats. It's been a year. It has been a year.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, I won't go to my YouTube channel because stuff autoplays and it'll end up on the recording. But I'm trying to remember when my very first Minecraft Let's Play came out, because that's what I did. I updated to 1.13 and then went around and fixed a bunch of stuff that had broken.
Yeah.
As my first task. So I'll have to look that up to see if I'm at a year as well. I caught some of the streaming this weekend. Some of the hermits were doing like a 1 year anniversary stream thing.
Yeah.
Which is always really cool. It's kind of hard to believe that 1.13 was a full year ago.
Yeah.
We've been talking 1.14 snapshots for a really long time.
Yeah.
And even more so in the last few weeks, as 14 and beyond have been receiving many iterations leading up to their releases almost weekly. So yeah, it's funny how that kind of stuff just kind of goes like far down the line. Question about your concrete maker: Are you filling it manually, or are you using a TNT duplicator?
Oh, I'm filling it manually for now, and it's funny. A lot of people immediately came into the comments and said, "Why aren't you using the zero-tick piston version, and why aren't you using TNT duplicators?" And mainly because I was also demonstrating a couple of other ways of farming concrete, just the kind of, dispenser,
Standard,
refueling you kind of thing. And it was just because I didn't want to overcomplicate it for people who just wanted a quick and easy concrete maker design without all of the extra bells and whistles. And it's the kind of stuff that with a duplicator, I will probably dedicate an entire episode to those at some point further down the line. So I didn't feel like just tacking it on to the end of this existing video.
Yeah, but, complicated stuff. I've got a couple of those really simple, like downward flowing water, a couple of hoppers. I don't even have a dispenser refilling my inventory with concrete powder. I just click on it and use it, just use a hotkey. Yeah. But I've had a number of people in my chat on Twitch comment about it and saying like, "Wow, that's actually really cool. I didn't realize that it would this would be that useful," because a lot of people just end up a majority of players that are like survival and maybe not that technical, they just go find a corner in a lake, and do it that way, which is not ideal, right? But speaking of the concrete makers, the simple ones specifically, I figured this out in a stream a while ago, and I don't remember if I've mentioned this on the show, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. But doing the exact same thing with a sign and a log and some hoppers with coal and with quartz and your Fortune 3 pick is so much better than pillaring up.
Yeah.
Or laying it all down in a line.
A large block of it like I do,
Yeah, and then mining it down. I mean, it's not as showy. Like, it's cooler on a video, of course, to make a giant thing.
Yeah.
And blitz through it. But my gosh, when you want quartz in a hurry and you're like, "Oh, God, I've already mined this. Now I have to lay it down and then mine it again." Just doing the same offhand method for concrete to mine quartz, brilliant. I can't believe it's taking me 2.5 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you're just like, if I was streaming at the time, you would have been able to hear the audio of my hand smacking my forehead like son of a gun. Like, what is going on? And there was one other question I wanted to ask about your space hub. Out of curiosity, are you going to duplicate the ship design in the outer end islands so that it feels as though you've taken the ship to your destination?
That's the plan. Yeah. What I have planned is a few different approaches to it, actually. In some cases, I want to duplicate the ship design and have the player basically appear in it. I think that might even be what I end up doing with the Ender, as long as I can manage to spawn proof all of the blocks that make up the ship, which might be kind of difficult. But I did want to, safety first, kind of like build a platform out there that meant that I wasn't just spawning on some leaves and with a massive drop into the void below me. I plan on doing something about that. as long as I can get the design right. But I have a few approaches I want to try, one of which is that you end up in the same kind of like scenario as you would if it was a normal end gateway. You just kind of get dropped off on the island, but then if you look up, you can see the same design of ship like speeding away from you as if it's like returning to the central hub, and it's just left you a kind of drop pod sort of situation. I kind of want to try some stuff like that just to see where it ends up and see how consistent some of the spawn locations are when you go through those gateways and stuff like that, because it always feels like you're being dropped down on the same piece of endstone, but are you really?
Yeah.
I'm not certain about that. So
no, and that was another question that I had. Is that I have a few end gateways on the Citadel, and one of them I've recently kind of it's the one that we most frequent because it's the one that's the most protected, so it's the easiest to get to. Has like the widest walkways, that kind of thing. And I recently replaced the ladder with like a drop and a water elevator. I love that you can use water in the end. I really miss it in the Nether. With the bubble vaders and stuff. But when I come back through, so when I'm in the outer rim and I come back in, I am always thrown dangerously off to the side of this thing. And it doesn't seem to matter how big I make the platform. I'm always on the edge of it.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if it's because I've made the platform too close to the portal and the stone blocks, like what am I looking for? The bedrock blocks, and that it's trying to put me where there's currently a block, and then the game just kind of like spazzes out and says like, you go over there, and it just kind of pops you out like 5 blocks to the side. But I am nowhere near that portal. Like, I'm not coming out a block or 2 in front of it. I'm coming like 4 to 5 blocks out to the side of it. And I'm still trying to figure out what the mechanics are. It's consistently incorrect, but it's incorrect to when I remember going through it when there was nothing around it, like when it was just like a ladder and a platform and stuff. So I need to learn more about those mechanics. Have you looked into them at all with what you're planning?
I haven't, no. I've seen it happen, though, when I've come back through. I tested out a couple of the portals that I just walked into just to see, like, does this go anywhere that I feel like I've been before? Because there's 20 portals, and I've probably been through about 5 of them. So, yeah, I will walk through, and then I have to ender pearl back through. And, yeah, you're right. It does displace you by about 5 blocks to one side or the other of the gateway you've just come through. So it's quite disorienting. And I've got a lot of blocks that I could potentially land on around there. It's not like it's all slabs and one solid block, but I think you could probably control it by making sure that's the only solid block in the area. Because I've definitely come back to, when you've first unlocked one of the end gateways, the first time it spawns in, and you typically just like pillar up to it and then chuck an ender pearl through as close as you can. I've definitely reappeared on the blocks that I used to pillar with because they were just the only valid block in that area that you could spawn in. So I expect you can control it that way, but it just, limits your design possibilities at that point.
The thing that I find interesting when you throw an ender pearl through, you generally like show up on the block where the ender pearl hits. Right? So if you're close to it and you throw the ender pearl, you're only going to show up a couple blocks on the other side because there's a trajectory that I think is maintained. But I don't know. I should look up some of the Psycraft stuff. I imagine they probably, have sorted out some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I've flown through the end gateways a couple of times because when you're flying with a light tree, you're only a block tall. So I've done that a few times, and now I've removed the bedrock from the tops of the gateways. Occasionally, I come out the other side flying, and depending on which way it drops you, which way you're facing when you come through the portal, it can be kind of scary. There was at least one point when I definitely did drop off past the end island, but luckily I was quick enough and had fireworks on my hotbar and my elytra engaged, and I was fine. But yeah, it's
hilarious.
It's led to a couple of scary situations and heart attacks in my Twitch chat sometimes.
Okay, Maverick.
yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of, I guess all the different updates and things that are happening in the game and how we're going to learn how to exploit them, we should probably talk about the news. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Minecraft 1.14.4 had a full release on Friday. The text from the blog post at minecraft.net is as today we are releasing 1.14.4, a release that addresses leftover issues from 1.14. We plan on this being the final release for 1.14, and we'll continue our efforts on 1.15. Aside from new features, 1.15 will also focus on quality and performance improvements. So it sounds like they want to improve it from a technical side and performance side even farther.
Yeah.
Not that, not, I mean, I'm assuming that's just always a thing. But it sounds like they're saying like, first we've got this really close to where we want it, but it's still not quite where we want performance, but it's better.
Yeah.
I also find it interesting that as far as I can recall, this is the first time that I've seen 115 typed alongside 114 or even mentioned, in terms of focusing on it. It's been mostly 114, as it should be, but I find it interesting now that they've now kind of like said out loud, 115 is coming, because we're only 8 weeks away from Minecon. Is it
Minecon Live now.
Minecon Live? I was like, there's another word there that I don't remember, and I know it's not Earth. Yes. So that's what's going on there. There are a number of we'll say changes in the logs. They have fixed a number of bugs, performance improvements, as I mentioned. Suspicious stew made from poppies now gives you night vision instead of speed. They added debug reports for getting more detailed information. Please include this while making bug reports about performance. Fixed a memory leak, removed camera pivot offset in first person, improved chunk loading when traveling at high speed, fixed incorrect pillager texture. Reload and force reload are now available to game masters. I didn't look into the different roles that they have, but I found that very interesting because with running a server, it'd be kind of cool to give some of my, more trusted friends that are on the server some extra admin duties, so it's not all on me. I thought that was really cool. Function permission levels are now setting at server.properties. That controls which commands functions have access to, which is cool. Villagers now stock more items. Villagers now remembered their gossip after becoming a zombie villager. Improved performance of villager pathfinding. Villagers can now work without also restocking at the same time. I'm noticing a trend here. Villagers gossip about players who converted a zombie villager will now last longer. The player activity button on the realm screen has been removed. Villagers now wait with restocking until they have trades they need restocking. Village sieges no longer occur on Mushroom Islands. That's good to know. Mobs will no longer try to pathfind their way through bamboo. And pinged the human. I don't know what that one means.
Yeah, I have no idea what that last thing means either. It seems a little bit cryptic.
Not that some of them are worded very strangely, but the rest of the bugs are all listed on Minecraft.net. I've picked out a handful here that we can talk about, but that's the rundown. A lot of the changes are going to sound familiar because we have talked about them in the snapshots in the recent weeks. So I didn't really want to repeat a lot of the bullets we've already talked about. So I tried to grab ones that we either haven't talked about much or didn't talk about at all or happen to be new. But in terms of all of these kind of performance things, I know that you've had some time in 114, obviously, both with your personal Survival Guide World and your Patreon server. So how are things shaping up? I mean, are things different as they say they are different, as according to the changelog?
As far as like changes that they've made, yeah, I think so. I haven't really had much feedback from the folks on my Patreon server about how server performance is, and I run a single player world pretty much exclusively now, so I don't know all that much about it. I'm taking the stance that no news is good news at this stage, and if they're not complaining about server performance being worse, I presume it's as good, if not better. It's good that Mojang has highlighted that they plan on continuing to improve performance, because that's been the major critique from the technical community, thinking about recent Il Mango videos as an example here, that lag and stuff has just gotten worse and worse through 1.13 and 1.14, and they kind of want to bring it back in line with the standard that the technical community now expects. And the fact that they're acknowledging that verbally at the top of the post in very plain language is refreshing, shall we say.
Yes.
So, yeah, no, I think for the most part, it's been good for me so far. And as far as the changes to villager stuff, I have definitely noticed more like work noise happening from those workstations. I did not realize, actually, I didn't read the changelog in its entirety when I updated. I didn't realize that they've removed, they've separated out what villagers working is and villagers restocking their trades. Because I presume they still only restock a couple of times a day, but now they only do that when they have trades that need restocking. And now you can't rely on the sound of them working to assume, okay, they've now restocked their trades. So that might be a good and a bad thing. Personally, I think it's good that they can work throughout the day and that they are working at times other than just like this fixed amount of game ticks and this other fixed amount of game ticks, which is what it was before. I think it was like 3,000 and 9,000 ticks was when they would work.
Yep.
And that allows iron farms to be better, because that means when you currently have this setup where the 3 villagers are in a cell being scared by a zombie, any chance they can get to work, they will, rather than having to guarantee that they can work at certain times of day. So that's good. That means that the conditions that are required to spawn an iron golem can keep constantly refreshing in the background, which is a very positive thing for iron farms. So that's good. Obviously, as far as a casual player experience goes, if you are now used to hearing for that like rustle of paper by a lectern to hear that your librarian has restocked his mending book trade, you might not be able to rely on that so much anymore. But considering it's just a matter of play time until that certain point, it's not going to be that big a deal for people. I'm glad that zombie sieges don't take place on Mushroom Islands anymore, because there are enough problems with other hostile mobs appearing on Mushroom Islands, like phantoms, for example. I didn't need zombies there as well. Not that I have a village on a Mushroom Island yet, but it's a project for the future, definitely. Glad to hear villager pathfinding is better, but I'm not in a position where I'm relying on villager pathfinding right now, so I will have to... jury's out on that one, whether it's improved or not, as far as I'm concerned. I'm very glad villagers are now stocking more items as well. That's a huge one, because now trading definitely felt like you have to have multiple of the same type of villager if you want to trade a bunch of items. So like you've got a stack of pumpkins, you can only trade like 5 or 6 times with a farmer before he locks up, and then you've only got 2 opportunities each day to trade with that farmer, so you have to have multiple farmers if you want to get rid of more than a stack. And people were still relying on legacy villagers who had those kind of like longer trade cycles in order to get rid of large quantities of crops. Having maybe double the amount of items so they can give you more emeralds per trading session is definitely an improvement. I wish they would do that with the Wandering Trader. It's the main thing. The guy came by as I was building my iron farm. He had blue ice, which is probably one of the only things I will bother to trade from the Wandering Trader. It's those or Nautilus shells, I think, are the only trades that I find valuable. I could buy 6 blue ice off of him, and then he locked up. And I was like, why do you not refresh your trades? I just need I need some source of blue ice that isn't just tearing down every iceberg that I see.
Oh, anyway. My goodness. So funny side story. It is very short. On my personal Discord, somebody shared an image of them on an iceberg, mining an iceberg. And up swims the Wandering Trader with 2 floating llamas. And without fail, the next comment was, I bet he has an ice trade.
Yeah. He's like,
hey, he's so useful.
Have you heard about this stuff that you're currently standing on? Yeah, exactly.
Chances are that iceberg biome was next to a jungle anyway, because like nothing like that makes sense in Minecraft. But it's pretty funny.
I like the idea of him turning up with 2 llamas in like inner tubes, just like the giant tire kind of size things. Like he's floating the river.
Wave riders. It'd be awesome if the llamas could like dog paddle at speed, and he was like water skiing behind the llamas. That's what we need. Yes. We don't need ice boats. We need mob propelled.
He's wakeboarding.
Boats. Yeah, wakeboarding. Yeah, that's what we need. So that'd be great. Well, for me, the biggest bugs, of course, that I noticed were related to servers and Mac, and it was really kind of cool to see not 1, not 2, but 3 bugs, all relating to my particular situation being fixed. The rolling shutter issue on Mac OS since 1.14.3 pre-release 2 has been resolved. It was supposed to be resolved in pre-release 6, and it didn't seem to be, but in 7 it seemed to hit a sweet spot. That seems to be sorted out. A high idle CPU usage on server edition was also a problem. We also had Java using 100 to 2%, 200% of the CPU on Mac OS. Also not a great thing. That has been fixed. From what I can tell, I don't ever remember checking like my CPU usage when I was playing Minecraft, but I feel I will know more when I stream next, because I feel like OBS is quite heavy on the processor. So if I'm noticing a better performance on my Mac when streaming, then that would indicate that Java is using less of the CPU.
If you hear the fan spinning up a bit less and that kind of
thing.
Yeah,
totally. Precisely. One of the other bugs that was fixed, but in the snapshots, but doesn't seem to be anymore for me personally. When closing the menu while moving the mouse, the screen will move in that direction. This is not fixed for me. I was unloading and loading a lot of shulker boxes over the weekend, and every once in a while I would be shot off in one direction or another when I exited that inventory, as opposed to where you were facing when you went in. And so that is still there. Other than that, really everything else has been pretty straightforward. A villager demanding values constantly increasing and decreasing indefinitely has been fixed. That addresses something that I mentioned on the show 1 or 2 weeks ago, I think, with regards to the new villager trades and the combination of like using a zombie villager and gossip and the larger amount of villager inventory, making trading very different than it was in 1.13, but in my opinion, a little OP. And this could have been bad for you if it was increasing indefinitely, but it could have been also very good for you if everything was 1 emerald.
Yeah.
You know, like for all these kind of things. So that could be maybe a little bit better of a balance now.
A good balance, yeah. There's one actual thing that hasn't been noted here because it's not a bug fix. It's a reintroduced bug. Ghost blocks are back. And I noticed that also glitching through glass and boats is back too. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I imagine the two of those are linked, and I'm not sure what exactly. Maybe it was the fix for the blocks when you broke them reappearing and like nudging players out of position and stuff.
Yeah, the pillar. What that was specifically a server bug apparently, and essentially the server couldn't keep up with the client. And so it would think that there was still a block there, but then you were there, so you would get pushed off your pillar, going down, and you'd fall.
Yeah,
and,
I'm wondering that fix has probably reintroduced the ghost block bug, and that was brought to my attention on a stream, and it wasn't like something I really noticed. But today I went to go and harvest a bit more ice from my ice farm, and I definitely had that where water sources wouldn't flow into certain spots, and then I right-clicked on them with my pickaxe, and sure enough, the ice blocks reappeared. So, yeah, hopefully that's something that can be resolved in future without reintroducing the other bug and it just being like a seesaw between those two things. Like,
if I have to choose between the two, I much prefer the silly pillar bug because I only ever ran into it once or twice and it was never a big deal. Same. And once you know it happens, you just don't do it. You just don't pillar, or you do it in prepared to potentially fall off the side. But I think you had mentioned at some point on the show too that it also would, if you don't want to deal with it, you could also just use scaffolding blocks. I mean, not that that's, you don't want to force the player into that kind of situation, but there is a way around it, to completely not have to deal with it.
I will continue to advocate for scaffolding blocks on this show. They are the business.
In the essence of time, we will point you towards our show notes on thespawnchunks.com to find a link to notes about the new beta version of the Minecraft launcher that Slice Limed posted on Twitter. And as well as the changelog there, as well as Optifine 1.14.4 pre-release 1, and that's at optifine.net. So if you're running an older machine and you're having trouble with 14.4, Optifine is out for pre-release. So it's still maybe a little bit buggy, but it is functioning. I've used it. I've tried some shaders. I took some screenshots and stuff this weekend, so it's working okay.
I have good reports about that as well. I have had no issues using it in 1.14.4 at all. So hopefully a full release should be on the cards very soon.
And other exciting news, and I'm looking forward to talk to you about this because I think you might have a little bit more, I guess, consumed than I do. But Minecraft Earth saw a lot of footage and gameplay over the weekend. Have you seen some of it?
I have seen some of it, not all of it. I know Good Times with Scar posted a video that I have not yet checked out, but I will probably after the show. We have videos from Mumbo Jumbo and Grian, who both got invited to London, along with, I believe, Dan TDM, who I'm less familiar with. But they all got to meet up with Sax, who's the guy who's been basically the project lead on Minecraft Earth, and they got the beta version of it. They got to hang around in London, playing around with it, both inside and outside, which is something that we've been asking for a while, is like, what does this look like outside in the real world? And yeah, it's some really interesting footage. Obviously, the challenge with Minecraft Earth being a mobile device exclusive thing is how do you record it, but they've done a pretty good job of explaining how stuff works and providing footage and stuff like that. So that's pretty good. Mumbo seems very enamored with it. He seems to like the whole idea, and he's quite impressed with it, having gone in as something of a skeptic about it. And Grian is pretty much the same. So I recommend checking out those videos if you guys are interested in getting a look at the average experience. Who the other person I'm going to highlight here is Seth Bling, because while Mumbo and Grian were very concerned with like the demo version, and obviously it was kind of happening under I won't say like controlled conditions, but they were there with the kind of the team and seeing how stuff worked and getting a demo of the features. Seth Bling immediately made a redstone speedometer and was using it to like run from one side of a yard to the other and track how fast he was doing that using redstone, which is classic Seth Bling as far as I'm concerned. Like, let me immediately explore the technical possibilities of this thing. And if you guys don't know who Seth Bling is, by the way, look the man up. He's done ridiculous stuff in Minecraft and is playing around with data packs and stuff a lot more lately. But he was, I believe he was given access to some of the beta stuff and given a bunch of XP or something so that he could level up and acquire certain amounts of components without having to travel too far for stuff that might not be easily accessible in the game yet. But yeah, he made a redstone speedometer, he made a giant piano, and I think he also made some kind of like thing you can run around to get a workout and do wind sprints, I think was what he said. So there's already some interesting demonstrations of how redstone functionality is incorporated into Minecraft Earth, but also a much more solid look at the gameplay from folks like Mumbo and Grian as well. So I think it's definitely becoming more apparent what kind of experience Minecraft Earth is going to be for the players, as opposed to just how they want Minecraft Earth to appear from like a demonstration point of view. So I'm liking it so far. I think it's got a certain amount of promise. How do you feel about it, having watched, I presume, like you've seen Mumbo's video, I think you said?
I've watched Mumbo's and I've watched Scars, and I got through a good chunk of Seth Bling's video before the podcast this morning. I completely missed it. I didn't know about it until I saw it in the show notes, and I really liked Seth Bling's approach. Like, he really does a good job of explaining how it works and what the experience was like.
Yeah.
Mumbo's was, like you said, more surface level. Scars was a lot more of a how-to, less of a I got to try this early. It's more of a let's learn how to play this together, which I thought was very useful.
Yeah.
And something very interesting for those of you that do follow Good Times with the Scar is that when he's out in the world, he's in a wheelchair and is off-roading in his. It's wicked. I don't know what powers his wheelchair. I want to say like it's the perpetual motion, like he has to push the wheel once, but then it has more the motor gets energy from that or something. But it's obviously an electric chair. Man, can he move. It's, and like going up over hills, and like he's in a park, like he's not on a path, like he's just like, I'm gonna go this way, just between the trees, because he's collecting mobs and blocks and trying to get all the things that he wants to have, so that when he gets back inside, he can then build what he wants. And there seems to be a learning curve as far as the interface, placing blocks and stuff like that. Seems to be like you tap at one place and it doesn't quite go where you want because of some, because I mean, we all have the, I guess, obstruction of our own finger, right? And depending on the size of the screen that you're playing this on, you might want to tap on one block and the game thinks that you tapped on the one next to it. So you kind of have to go with that.
Yeah.
But I've learned that your collect ability essentially gives you like a silk touch pickaxe, so you just kind of get what you place down. So if you placed stone, you don't get cobblestone.
Same with glass. You don't just like break glass and have to find it again, because that would be kind of strange in a game that relies on you to walk around the world collecting resources. Like, you have to be much more careful with your glass the way you are in
precisely. Now the build plates, they all have different sizes as you level up, depending on what you've collected and how much you've collected. Then you can unlock different size build plates. They seem to have not only just a limit horizontally, but also a depth down into the ground. Like, you can only go so far before you start to see a bedrock box, like as if you dug a 16 by 16, hole. That's got a bedrock sides to it. However, one really cool image that Seth Bling shared in his video was he could not figure out what the build limit was in terms of height. He thinks it's 64, but he can only hold his phone so high when he's building in build plate mode.
It's like until you get on a ladder or something, It's like, how high can we do this?
And then he put it in the real world, and it's 64 meters tall. Like, I mean, it is, and it's an experience. And I really am getting stoked about what that's going to look like when you walk down the street and somebody has built something as tall as they can,
absolutely.
right next to the sidewalk. Like in a neighborhood, if you've got, like we mentioned last week, where you've got friends that are all on the same, everybody's linked to one another through the friends ability, so that you can see what other people have done. This is shaping up to be very, very cool as far as that kind of experience goes. I am a little bit on the fence of two things that I noticed in the videos. One, Mumbo, Scar, both were very often holding their phone about a foot off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't seem comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Scar was a little bit better because he's already in a chair, but he was still leaning over the arm of the chair. Mumbo is like 6'4" or 6'5" or something. So to see him kind of like bent over and crouched over this little area that he's working on seemed a little bit strange.
Yeah.
Now I know that you can't zoom in, but I would think that maybe the process there is to maybe take care of more of that when you're in build plate mode, like when it's just on your coffee table.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it's meant to be done on tables, but if you're around, like just walking around the world, and you can't find a table to do that on, then the nearest flat surface is going to be the ground, and so then you have to like sit down or squat down and play with stuff that way. It might get a little awkward.
Yeah, and I don't know because I don't remember. I'd have to watch them again whether they were interacting with mobs or trying to capture something or doing something like that. So I don't. That seemed a little bit off for me, and it's not the only time I've seen it. I've seen a number of people where they're in really awkward physical positions when they're playing the game. So there's something about that. It could also be the size of the screen. Scar was playing on an iPad. I think he was out using a big phone to collect things in the world, but when he was building in his studio at home, he was using an iPad, which was way easier to see what was going on, which is very cool. I shouldn't say iPad; it was a tablet. I don't know what model it was. The other thing is the tapping, endless tapping, nevermore to collect things. Seems like it's going to get real old real fast.
In a way, it's sort of emulating the player experience in Minecraft in that you're kind of having to like hit a block multiple times in order to get it. So I can see what they're going for from like an immersion point of view. But yeah, it does seem to be something like the repetitive motion of it might get a little bit like straining on some people's hands and like
straining and just monotonous. I mean, like
monotonous. Yeah.
I mean, I get the fact that, okay, it's a tree and you're going to tap it, and the more that you tap it, you're going to get blocks, and you're going to get like 6 or 8 blocks of tree and potentially, you know, sticks and maybe some leaf blocks and stuff like that. However, anybody that I know think chopping down trees in Minecraft is fun? Not really. Yeah. It's a necessity, right? Like it's maybe satisfying at the end, but the process of it is not fun. And I think that while I appreciate the immersion aspect of it, a single tap, you know, find the tree, you have to walk up to the tree. That's enough work, you know, and just tap on the tree and have it kind of like appear in your inventory. Same thing, like, oh, you found some cobblestone, like click on the cobblestone, you get 3. Don't make me click 3 times. You know, like that kind of stuff. So I feel like the chests look like they're doing that in a similar way, where you find a chest, you tap on it, it has a very satisfying animation, and then it opens up. And the things that were inside of it were maybe like, you know, 3 bits of redstone, you know, some cobblestone, and I don't know, you know, a cow, or, you know, whatever happens to be in their glass. They kind of appear at the top of the screen to show you what was in it, and then they go into your inventory. That to me seems like the same way that you should collect a tree, or you should collect, you know, something else. Still have some sort of satisfying animation. Maybe you tap on it and you have to wait a second or two before the tree is completely chopped down and into your inventory, as opposed to just having to be there and just like tap, 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 tap. It's very apparent in the sped up footage of Scar's video of him walking around this park and collecting stuff. There's an awful lot of tapping. Like it even in the video, it seemed like maybe they got kind of tired of that. But no, I'm very, very curious. I feel like I'm not going to have quite the same experience because I do have a very small phone, and I don't know that this is going to be the best for that. I know Seth Bling mentioned in his video that he had an older model phone and he apologized for the shaky footage. I think it's one of those things we're going to have to experience ourselves, because I don't think anyone yet has found a good way to capture this and communicate this. There's no way to keep the handshake out of it, right?
Yeah.
The handheld version. So it feels very shaky, and it's very difficult to tell whether it's the shake of the geometry not attaching itself to the real world surface, or if it's the shake of just the person holding it and it's just their heartbeat. Like it's just them moving in the world. But because they're the ones holding the device, they probably don't notice it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure you could do a pretty solid trade in like iPhone gimbals or something, like some kind of Steadicam rig that you can have.
Yep.
Just for anybody who's like playing this and wants to upload footage of it in a kind of professional capacity. Well, what you really need to do is get one of those like iPhone things that, or any kind of like mobile device rig that can adjust the angle and give you slightly smoother Steadicam-esque footage. You might even find that an aid to gameplay, especially if you're tapping on something and you're not quite sure where you're tapping because the image is moving around a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that could be really cool, especially because if you've got like a camera pointed at a phone and the phone is on like the gimbal part, and
yeah,
like that could be really cool. The one thing I'm curious of is while there's a lot of tapping, obviously, a lot of mobile devices now support controllers. Mm-hmm. So you could potentially do some of these things with a controller for movement. I think collection is still going to be tied to a tap, so I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah.
I also don't know how they address anything in the game. I mean, it's still in early beta, but I don't know how any kind of accessibility features are working, because a lot of times mobile devices will have a number of accessibility features for people that have trouble tapping.
Yeah.
You know, that people have trouble with vision and sound and stuff like that. So be interesting to see how that becomes more inclusive as it rolls along.
For sure.
Speaking of rolling along, the one thing that I noted that was very cool, I noticed it in Scar's video, but Seth Blaine gave a really good explanation of when you are moving at speed, the game indicates and recognizes that you are in a car and puts your player in a Minecraft cart, which is a nice
minecart. Yeah, it's very cool.
Which is a neat touch, but also seems to be a very fast way to collect things.
Yeah, that's something that was missing, I think, from Pokemon Go as an experience. Was at first they kind of penalized the player for traveling at speed because the idea was that you were supposed to be walking around. And like if you were even on a bike moving like relatively slow compared to a car, it would still notice that you were traveling a certain speed because you had to move a certain distance in order to hatch eggs for Pokemon, which I don't think is a mechanic at all in Minecraft Earth, so they don't have that that desire to penalize players for traveling faster and covering more ground. And so yeah, it did seem like quite a neat way of going around and picking up stuff. Obviously it lets you know you shouldn't be doing this if you're driving, which is obviously probably an early addition to that as a feature, just being like, make sure we don't have people crash their cars. What was I going to say about it? Oh, the few questions I have left about Minecraft Earth is mainly about build plates and stuff, and it might have been covered in somebody's video that I just haven't seen, but I want to know how many build plates there are and what the different sizes are, because I feel like this is going to be a really interesting time for tutorial builders, folks like me who want to know, who want to provide resources for people who are like, I have this Minecraft Earth stuff, I have this many blocks, I don't really know what to build with it all, and providing like Minecraft Earth build plate size builds, I think would be a really fun thing to do, a bit of a fun tutorial project for me.
Yeah.
So I want to know what size the build plates are and how many of them there are, what the biomes are. Are there any blocks from Minecraft which aren't in Minecraft Earth? Because I know in Minecraft Earth we already have like some variants in mobs that aren't in the core game. How does that change the opposite way? Are we going to be able to get hold of like Dark Prismarine and Endstone and some of the more kind of out there blocks, or is it just going to be restricted to stone types and wood and the kind of the stuff that they use in Minecraft promotional art all the time, because that's what people think of when they think of Minecraft?
Yeah, the core early game. From what I can tell, you can get more rare blocks from chests.
Yeah.
And the build plates, if you look at some of the videos, you can pause them and there's enough content on the build plates because they come with some pre-gen things. Yeah. You can probably count the blocks. I want to say probably 8, 12, 16,
yeah. I'm pretty
square.
sure that the largest one is 16 by 16, but they don't all seem to be regular shapes either. They seem to be like, some of them might be 8 by 10 or something like that. So
I didn't notice that.
I think some of them are more rectangular than they are like traditionally kind of square. So that's going to be interesting. And Dosage in our Discord actually brought up a good point. We don't know for certain what inventory management is going to be like, if we have like a limited inventory or if there's endless space for these tappable resources, if that maxes out at any point, and if so, it does seem like stuff will stack, but it won't just stack to 64. Like, I'm pretty sure Seth Bling at one point pointed out, he said he had like 1,500 stone or something like that, and it will say
wood. It was wood. Yeah,
yeah. It'll say 1.5k instead of being just like 64, and then replicated endlessly throughout your inventory, which is smart.
Yeah, well, and it's definitely smart because storage would be crazy. You imagine having to walk across the neighborhood to get to your chests.
Yeah.
The wood thing and the storage thing, I would imagine, because collecting items is tied to unlocking XP and upgrading your access to different build plates, I would imagine it's probably limitless, or like to the point where like no one can collect this much. It might have a ceiling, but the ceiling might be so far away that it's just potentially unreachable by the average person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious as to how this will hold up in terms of data plans and like what it really means to be out in the world and playing this. If it has an offline mode, like if you can play it in the backseat of a car when you're on a family vacation, and collect things, and that would be using data. But then when you're done, turn off the data and just maybe build, or because if you had a small flat surface in the back of a minivan, like you could totally just put a build down and work on it, provided that you don't get car sick when you're working on a tablet in the backseat of a car. But it's the kind of thing though, like, I mean, if you're on a long road trip, I mean, collecting resources, gosh, that would be entertaining and probably keep you quiet. Like, parents might be very interested in this game.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to do a quick editorial thing here and say we should probably not do our discussion topic this week. It was kind of hastily thrown together, but we are running short on time a little bit here. So I want to handle the email because it was a really good email, but I think we've had enough discussion just on the news and the stuff that we've been doing that we can probably forego our main discussion topic and maybe cover that next week. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's fine by me. I was going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, it's like I'm seeing the recording clock getting past an hour, including the pre-show, and I'm like, yeah, we should probably just read the email and call it a day. So, let's move on to Chunk Mail. I think it's your turn to read this week.
It is indeed. This email comes from Bob. He is Crouching Python in our Discord community. Bob says, "Hi guys, just wanted to drop you a line and thank you for the amazing podcast and share a bit of background so that you can appreciate what I love about the Spawn Chunks. I teach middle school computer science in the States. In my school, that's grades 5 to 8. I have each student for about 10 weeks, and I try to load up the curriculum with cool technology, all of it having a coding emphasis. So game design, robots, physical computing, Raspberry Pi, etc., and of course, Minecraft. I've been a fan of Minecraft for about 8 years now, and I'm always looking for ways to incorporate it into my curriculum. I teach coding in Minecraft with Python, hence the name. I call it Mython, and it's amazing. In the last year, I've introduced Minecraft Education Edition in some classes, which has opened up another great coding platform, MakeCode. Last quarter, I had students build mini games, which had used some redstone and command blocks, and they were all very, very cool. I realized that as much as I love Minecraft, I actually don't play it as much as a result. I don't really know that much outside of the technical aspects I focus on. I found the Spawn Chunks, which has opened up worlds of things for me to explore. It's summer break here in the States, and I am spending as much time as I can going down all of these new rabbit holes. You're welcome. And I'm sorry at the same time. Yep. I would love to hear more technical stuff on the podcast, like the episode with Logical Geek Boy. How about command blocks or something on map making? And while I'm at it, more Bedrock content, please. Anyway, many thanks for sharing your passions in an entertaining, informative, and even quote-unquote grown-up way. I'm going to say Bob or Mr. Irving in Charleston, South Carolina. Thanks so much, Bob. That was a fantastic email, and so cool to hear that we've got some teachers in the listening community and part of our Discord community as well. Kind of a good resource to have for people that are interested in Minecraft education, to know that that Crouching Python is an educator. And I thank you very much for the kind words. That was super, super nice of you. I don't know if grown up is the right word, but hey.
Yes, I was going to say, I resent being called a grown up at this stage in my life.
Stop it, Bob. Stop it right now.
I'm a professional Minecraft player. I'm pretty sure most people don't consider me a grown-up, but here we go. Yeah, got to rethink my approach now. I need to suit the time.
Yeah, branding.
So yeah, it's interesting. I love this email. Thank you so much, Bob. I bet Bob had a field day, by the way, with our episode with Adam Clark and hearing about the stuff he does with Minecraft and education. And we've talked about that in the past about having more educators on. I'm pretty sure we're going to get in touch with Stephen Reed pretty soon, who is Immersive Mind. We've talked about him ad infinitum on the show before. But I like the fact that Minecraft can be used as a teaching tool for this kind of stuff. And I totally relate to the fact that you don't really play Minecraft much when you're dealing with it from that perspective. One of the questions that we didn't quite get to with Adam Clark when he was on the show was like how much he actually sits down and plays the survival game, or if that really doesn't register with him. I feel like he probably playtests some of his maps in survival because that's how people are going to be experiencing them. But I have a feeling that, like, as far as the survival game that Joel and I play, like the kind of stuff where we're just going through the game, doing the progression, getting resources, building cool stuff, I feel like a lot of that is peripheral to his experience, if not what he has in mind when he's making all of these maps and stuff. So yeah, it would be very cool to talk to more technical people as far as command blocks and map making goes. I'm not sure I can promise more Bedrock content, although I did play a Bedrock Marketplace map kind of recently, and I'm going to start doing more Bedrock map reviews on my channel rather than doing a Bedrock Let's Play. So stick around for that if you follow me on YouTube, because there might be some interesting stuff that comes up through that, and there are some very different experiences when it comes to what map makers are able to do that are available through the Bedrock Marketplace. So a fascinating place to at least get a surface level look at that stuff, if not actually discuss how it's done.
And I think as far as the podcast goes with Bedrock content, it's more likely that we would invite a Bedrock guest onto the show to talk about it, because I don't really have access to it, and I don't see myself necessarily going that route in the future. But I think that it's. I mean, I understand that a lot of our listeners probably are on Bedrock, as most of the Minecraft community is on Bedrock. One of the interesting notes from Seth Bling's video is that if you're not a Bedrock user and you have not purchased a skin on Bedrock, then you're going to show up as the default Steve avatar in Minecraft Earth. So there's definitely some strong Bedrock ties to Minecraft Earth, which of course I would imagine has to do with the marketplace and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's the code base that they'll be using to put it on mobile devices in the first place, because they can't exactly put the Java edition on there, otherwise they'd have done that when they developed Minecraft Pocket Edition in the first place. Speaking of Seth Bling, by the way, can we get Seth Bling on to talk about all of the stuff he's already done in Minecraft Earth? I kind of feel like he's one of those like bucket list guests that it would be fascinating to talk to. So
I'd like to have some people on the show that have had an opportunity to actually play Minecraft Earth before it comes out, like to try to get some beta experiences and stuff like that. Because I've heard it's live in London in some places for some people, and you're the closest that I know.
Yeah, no, I've not had any kind of email thing saying how I can access the beta, so I'm pretty sure they are just rolling that out to, they're sort of cherry picking content creators first of all, and then rolling it out to people who have just shown an interest a little bit later. So all of the people I've seen playing online have either been like, what you'd call influencers, people with like a large follower base online, or they have been people who are affiliated with Mojang or Microsoft in some way.
If only we knew a couple of guys that had a podcast about Minecraft, because that would be an ideal platform to talk about the Minecraft Earth beta, don't you think?
If only.
Yes.
We can dream. I also find it, going back to the email, to Bob's email, I found it kind of interesting how Minecraft can become an obsession even for people who don't really play it that much. I hear a lot of people online, I read the Minecraft Reddit, and people are saying like, how do I get back into this game after I played it years and years ago? And it's really funny how people can get really theoretical about Minecraft, or load it up with mods and external tools like Adam Clark does, without actually playing the game as we know it. And that's kind of fascinating to me, that people like can develop a love of this game without really playing what most would consider the core game. It's like going into, say, I don't know, Tomb Raider, to pluck a game out of the air, and really loving all of the lore and all of the kind of the stuff about Tomb Raider, but never having actually touched Tomb Raider and never like picked up the guns of Lara Croft to begin with. I find that stuff interesting, and it speaks to me about how universal Minecraft is, and we say stuff like this all the time, but it has such a broad appeal, even to people who aren't, going to be able to commit an hour or two every night to sit down and build something. There are aspects of the game that they can still access, whether that's as a teaching tool or something completely different.
Yeah, when I mentioned, or when we mentioned Nembon earlier in the episode, I've watched his Iron Farm video, and some of the stuff that he does with command blocks and stuff like that for illustrating, borders and boundaries and limits and spawning areas and stuff like that. Like, I'm sure it's not overly complicated, but it's the kind of thing that I just don't have time to explore or have not had the inclination to explore in the game. But it's the kind of thing from an education perspective that I think would be really, really interesting and could be very, very useful. I mean, just think about all those math problems that we had as kids. Train A leaves station B at 6 o'clock, traveling so many miles an hour, etc. To be able to illustrate that visually in Minecraft and have measurements and blocks and areas and all that kind of stuff. It could be such an interesting thing to explore, but I'm always kind of like, not, I wouldn't say hamstrung, but I'm kind of held back by, it's like I don't have the resources to figure it out, or when I go to look for the resources, it's overwhelming. Like the amount of information that you find, it's almost too much.
Yeah.
It's the same. I would I like your analogy with Tomb Raider. I would also draw a line to say a very popular MMO that's been around for a long time, because the depth of the game is just it's second nature for people that have been playing an MMO for 10 years. But for someone that's coming in day one after the game has been around for 10 years, it's just so much to consider and to parse. And I can understand how some people get in, they place a few blocks, and they just go like, I don't know what to do. Like, it's just so like, which direction do I go? Like, it's different. And I'm wondering, and maybe Bob, you can help us out with this. Either write in again or leave a note in the Discord. In terms of introductory resources for, people that want to get into coding command blocks or want to learn more about how to make mini games, is there a go-to source that you recommend? And I'm okay if it's recommended for kids that are in grades 5 to 8, because that's about the coding level that I would be at. If there's a place to start that's narrow, like that has a narrow field, like I remember I've mentioned Uncle Jam on the show before. When I was learning how to do some resource pack stuff, a lot of that stuff is unfortunately out of date now because of the changes that they made in 1.13. But the core concept was very, very straightforward, and it was something that I was able to then grasp and apply to my own texture changes later on. And I'd love to learn more about that, because I mean, as a server admin on the Citadel, there's some stuff with command blocks that I would like to do in the future that could be very cool and add to a really fun experience. And I'm learning a little bit, and I think I know, is it Java that I learned? I'm not sure if it's Java that I learned. JSON script maybe, for the resource packs and the models and stuff. But the in-game Minecraft script, I don't get. I really have a hard time remembering /trigger something. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm wondering if there's any resources out there that help kind of define and what's the word I'm looking for? Sift through that stuff.
Yeah, other than just the Minecraft wiki, which typically has the most bare bones information, or even if it's in depth, it's not in depth in a very kind of teaching friendly sort of way.
Yeah, it's like, here's the line of code that does what you want. Well, thanks, but that doesn't explain.
Yeah, it doesn't give you much in the way of context, which is
when you learn a language, you learn vowels and consonants, and you learn verbs and nouns, and you learn adjectives and all that kind of stuff. But I need that context in coding. I need to know what a string, and I need to know what these things are for, and I'm variables. I'm trying to remember some of the language that's used in JSON script. It's similar sort of things, ranges and different stuff like that. And once you know how to open and close and control that kind of stuff, then you can start to write your own. But you need to know what that structure is, right?
Yeah. And I'd like to close this out by opening up the discussion to our audience as well, to our listeners. If anybody out there has either like if you're younger, if you've actually had Minecraft be part of your like curriculum at any point, if you've had like an IT class where you have built stuff in Minecraft, or any other kind of like lesson scenario where you've had Minecraft included in that, or maybe if you're a parent who has a kid who has come home from school and said, today we did some stuff but we did it in Minecraft, and it's given them a different approach. I would like to hear about that, because it's really interesting hearing more about the way Minecraft is used in education, and we'd love to get more guests on the show about that, but also some listener emails along those lines would be really cool too. So write to us at the email that Joel will give you in a moment. But for now, I'm going to close out the show and say that's going to be it for this episode of The Spawn Chunks. You can find more information about the show and links to some of the stuff we've talked about today at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is, as always, proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you're getting some value out of the show, if you enjoy listening to us every week, why not consider putting some value back in? You can visit patreon.com/thespawnchunks to join our community. Pledging at any level gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat and gets us closer to our next goals. We can have a chunk mail dispenser segment in the post-show where we discuss emails that we've received specifically from patrons, but also from anybody else who happens to listen in. Right now, we've got 110 patrons, so we're breaking even from last week, and there is plenty of room for you in the Discord. I want to give a special thanks to our content engineers, JD Williamson, Llama, and Yitz, for supporting this episode.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. It's free. Just tell folks about it. You can find us at The Spawn Chunks on Twitter and Instagram, but a personal recommendation is by far the best way to share the podcast with your friends, server mates, and other places that you talk about Minecraft. Just poke a friend in the arm and say, hey, this is a very cool podcast. You should listen. And it has an amazing community around it. Check it out and point them in the direction of the podcast. They can listen on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, and Spotify. They can find everything at thespawnchunks.com. They can email us at thespawnchunks@gmail.com. I'm sure you're detecting a theme here. We're pretty easy to find online. The RSS feed is linked on the Spawn Chunks website, and the patron-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page. And that's the only place where you can listen to the render distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Johnny, but online I go by Pixel Riffs, and you can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where I attempt to make sense of this crazy and wonderful game in a series called the Minecraft Survival Guide. I stream 3 days a week on Twitch, doing behind-the-scenes work for the Survival Guide, and I'm also the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search. Aside from that, I'm at Pixel Riffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything that I'm doing online is on joelduggan.com. That includes my illustration and design portfolio. If you'd like to hire me, then just drop me a line there. You can find my other podcast, The Citadel Cafe, at thecitadelcafe.com. And you can follow me on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram with just my name, Joel Duggan. I am very easy to find. I'm going to direct you towards Twitch, as usual. Just my name. I'm going to be back streaming Minecraft. I might have to do some non-video recording streams with a loud air conditioner in the background just to kind of get back on there. But we will be returning in the next week or so on Twitch with extra videos.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, so go out and tap on all the things.